Hi everyone. Well, I put my lipstick on even for you. This is all part of the plan. The pups have all been outside playing, so hopefully that I would be able to sit in here without getting mauled to death. I just have Miss Orange here, Bailey, and Miss Yellow, Shay. And here comes Mr. Hank. So I'm going to try to do most of my talking, and then I will show them to you at the end. Okay. First thing I want to start with is our visit to the vet. Okay, puppies were wormed when they were 3 weeks old. I've kind of rethought my thinking about this and talking to my vet. I used to worm the puppies every 3 weeks, 3 times. But we started by worming them the 3rd week, and by week 5 I take a stool sample in, which I did with this litter, and it came back negative, which is good, which means there were no parasites or anything in the stools at this particular point. And when they go in on September the 10th, we'll take another sample in, and if in the meantime they've picked up some coccidia or something that shouldn't be there, which is not uncommon for a puppy. A lot of times mama carries dormant eggs in her that never show up in any stool samples, and then when we have puppies that can become alive. So if there's something there, we will put the pups on medication, and Miss Bailey is just having a grand old time here. Here, shake. Good girl. Good girl. They'll come home with some medication if we need to. On our first trip to the vet, we will have our first set of puppy shots. Puppies will all be microchipped in between the shoulder blades back here. I need to kind of fill you in that if you go to your vet, he needs to have what we call a universal scanner. Avid, which is a brand name of microchip, also has their own scanner, and the Avid scanner will not pick up the Home Again chip. We had a couple letters where people were calling me back taking the dogs to the vet and the microchip wasn't there. So now, rather than chip them twice, I'm a firm believer, and I don't want to do anything unnatural to the dogs as much as I can. And that includes worming medication, no bite. Here. Okay, I just lost my train of thought.
The Avid Universal?
Oh, yes. So I don't want to chip them more than once if we have to. So now when I take them to the vet and they inject the microchip in between the shoulder blades, the vet tech will scan the puppy right in front of me, and I can see the number come up. So I will be able to tell you that they are definitely in there. So if we don't have a universal scanner, it's not going to show up. Okay, the one thing I want to cover just as far as, I'm going to talk more about taking your puppy home in a minute. I've had a lot of questions about when to begin puppy classes. Some of the puppy classes will allow you to join after the 3rd set of shots. I personally do not recommend that you do any kind of formal training unless someone's going to come into your home with your pup until they have had all their shots, including their rabies shots. Now, my vet doesn't give rabies shots until they are 16 weeks old, which is around 4 months. So if your vet wants to do that differently, that's fine. I kind of try to space my vaccines out a little bit, so if we have a reaction to something that I have a vague idea of what it is. But I would not take the puppy to Bark Park. I would not take them to the pet store and put them on the floor. Parvo is still very prevalent in this day and age, and this is probably more around the age of 3 months is when they can pick that up, and that can become a very serious, sometimes deadly disease. So I just act on the side of very conservative. So I don't even put my dogs on the vet's floor. Even when I take these puppies in, it's the first appointment in the morning, and you can smell the Clarks in the room when we go in. So I just wouldn't expose them to anything more than you have to. If you're driving a distance to go home and you stop to let the pup out, Bob and I very rarely will stop at a rest area because, you know, obviously every pet has been there. We might stop at a gas station or a fast food place that has a little grass, put them down, stop, and let them do their thing, and then pick them right back up off the ground. So just a little word about that. Yes, she is full of it now, huh, aren't you? Okay. A lot of questions about the crate. I know some of you have bought crates. If you're traveling a distance, I would recommend that you put a small crate or something in the car. I would not plan on driving all the way home holding your puppy. The puppy's going to get tired of being held. And I think putting them in a crate, you know, obviously keeps them safe for the ride home. If we need to and they cry a lot, usually the vibration of the car will put them to sleep. If not, with my vet's approval, we can give them, I have a tablet of Dramamine, which I will give you from here for you to go home with. As far as sleeping goes, I recommend that you buy the standard Golden Retriever crate, and it measures 42 by 30 by 28. And most of them now will come with a partition that looks just like the side of the crate. Now the crate behind me here is a little smaller than the one that you're going to buy. And the partition is handy. It also will save you money, so that unless you want to have a crate downstairs and upstairs, but you take and you give the puppy just as much room as he or she needs to lay down. And we're trying to train them not to go potty in their space. In the wild, most animals do not like to mess in their den, so to speak. So the crate is going to become their den. And the crate is going to be a happy place for the dog to be, even though the first couple nights they may cry their hearts out. I recommend, of course, if you're going away for a couple hours, that you put the dog in the crate. Make it a happy experience for him or her. Put some peanut butter in a Kong, put it in there with them, or a Nylabone, which I'll talk a little bit about later. And even when I feed our dogs, they all eat in a crate. So being in the crate becomes a very positive experience for them. Don't let it punish the dog and put the dog in the crate, because then they'll never ever want to go in the crate. Now, I want to talk about nighttime. When we have a new pup, Bob and I put the crate in our bedroom. I'm a very light sleeper, so sometimes that's not the easiest thing for me, but I think the puppy is reassured by knowing that you're there. And what I do, after I've partitioned off the crate, I cover the entire crate with a sheet, and I might leave this much space at the door area, just enough that they can see out. And again, going to bed with a treat or whatever. The puppy starts to cry, and your puppy is going to cry, and that's a good thing, that's okay, that's very natural. They'll get over it. But if he or she starts to cry, what I normally do is lay down on the ground beside the crate, and I slip my hand in, and 9 times out of 10, the puppy will come and sleep on my hand. And then when the puppy is finally asleep, I'll get up and go get, thank you, that's a nice shake, Bailey. That's a nice shake, that's Miss Orange, Miss Bailey. Once the puppy goes to sleep, I get up and go to bed. The first night I might do that 3 or 4 times, and then the puppy cries. After about 3 nights of that, maybe longer, maybe a week or so, if it's just, he's catching on to the fact that you're going to come down there and lay with him every time he cries, because he is beginning to figure out that he can train us when we're supposed to be trying to train them. So after about night 3 or 4, if the puppy's going to cry, I would just let him cry it out. Now at that point, if you need to move him out of the bedroom, that's okay to do too. Please do not take your puppy out of the crate because, I'm sorry? Oh. Do not take the puppy out of the crate and put them in your bed, or you will never get them back in their crate to sleep. And I have one puppy buyer who did this before, and I believe Murphy still sleeps with them, right, Bridget? But anyway, I know it's hard to hear them cry, but that's all part of their learning experience. You have to remember that they've been separated from their litter mates. This is the first time they've been alone. They have all spent time in the crate. Individually, they don't like it very well, but 5 minutes is going to be a little different than all night. But I'm just trying to get them accustomed to the fact that they are going to be enclosed in for a while. You'll also be going home with a CD called Kennel Calm, C-A-L-M, and it's about 15 minutes of music that was put together by Master's Voice. And after a lot of studying and research, they found that certain instruments and a certain beat of the music is very calming to the dog. And you might put that on for 15 minutes to help maybe quiet them down. After you've done everything you can do, then finally it's just going to come to a point where they're going to have to cry it out. And that's okay. So, hope I answered all those questions about the crate. The next thing I want to tell you, you're going to get, Miss Shay, you're going to get my list up there. What I wanted to talk to you about is the thunderstorm and firework training technique tape that I'm using. This is what it looks like. This is produced again by Master's Voice. I found this online a few years ago when I was beginning to do my pet therapy training with the pups. I think it's wonderful. Again, it starts out with, there are 14 sessions. It starts out with just music, and then as the sessions go on, the natural thunderstorm noise is added to the music, and by the time you get through session 14, all they hear are the thunderstorms. And I usually put it in the CD, especially when we're here in the pen training, and just turn it on really loud. We are not quite yet to the end of that session. We will be this week, and I think you'll all be able to see that they'll probably all sleep right through the firework and thunderstorm training. It's the same music. One is with thunderstorms, one is with fireworks. This is something I'm going to recommend that you continue to introduce to your pup, dog, from time to time. It's not uncommon that later in life they may develop a fear to thunderstorms and fireworks. Our Logan, who is 8, probably developed one about 2 years ago. He's fine if we're with him in the room, but if he's by himself, he just goes crazy. I think a lot of you have had experience with dogs who are afraid of thunderstorms. So that's just one part of the training that I'm trying to do here. Something, if you want to consider buying the CD, I can make that available to you, or I can order it for you. I do get a discounted price at that, but just something, don't bite, just something to keep in mind. Okay, you can see, multiply these two energy level and wanting to chew times 10. No, times 5. There you go. Just a couple things about going home and commands that you're going to give to your dog. First of all, I've said that all along that this entire litter is very laid back, and I sincerely mean that. They are fun and loving, but they are also puppies, and they are still only 6 weeks old. So they are going to be full of energy at times. They're going to want to romp and play, and they're going to want to chew on you and the kids and everything in sight. And some of that, you know, is okay. That's just being a puppy. But there are things that you need to do to try to curb that. Number one, I want to tell you that when you're giving your dog a command, especially this young, you want to try to have eye contact with them when you tell her to sit, or him, sit. She's more interested in what's going on behind me. Okay, shake. Can you shake? Shake. You want to get into the habit of only giving the puppy one command. This is something they teach you in obedience school. If you tell the puppy to sit, and if she's not in the mood to pay attention to you, one of my rule of thumbs as far as the training goes is that when she starts something or you start something, the puppy has to finish it. You have to follow through. So if I tell Shay to sit, Shay is Miss Yellow here. Sit. Shake. Good girl. Now that was pretty darn good. But if she would have sat there and not lifted her paw, I just would have picked up her paw and shake, then praise her, tell her, good girl, yeah. And they're not going to perform every time you tell them to, especially at this young age. As the dog gets older, yes, they should perform for you every time that you ask them to. I'm also an avid fan of using hand signals when you are teaching the dog. Sit. There's really not one for shake, but if you're doing down, it's a downward point with the finger. Take the front paws, hold the puppy down and say down. Good girl, good girl. Now that's a hard one because it confines the puppy. The other one I've worked on is if they're jumping up on the side of the pen here, or if they're jumping on you, the term is off. So if they're jumping on you and you tell them down, you're going to confuse them because they're going to think that means to lay down. Those are the 4 basic commands that you use in obedience school. I also think if you want to create your own hand signals, that's perfectly fine. But I do feel that there are certain places and circumstances, number one, I believe it's in pet therapy, that if words are not appropriate at the time, that you should be able to give the dog a hand signal and they should perform the action for you. So that's one thing. You can reward them. They will have all had peanut butter by the time they leave here. They will have cheese and a little bit of hamburger just to introduce them to. Dogs can be allergic to peanuts just like people, so I always try to give them the peanut butter here first. They love it. It's wonderful, and it'll keep them busy forever if you put it in a Kong. The one thing I did want to tell you as far as when the puppy cries or if the puppy gets startled, don't pick the puppy up and what I call coddle them. And that means don't pick them up and say, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. All that does is reinforce bad behavior. I don't want them to be startled. I don't want them, and they're going to be startled, but I don't want them to act that way. So I'm not going to reinforce their acting like that way by saying, it's okay. So if the dog is frightened, I'm going to pick the puppy up and I'm just going to say, good girl, or good boy, where she can see me eye to eye, and that gets a little tougher the heavier they get, but good girl. Kind of reinforce the good and redirect their attention right away. But don't feel sorry for them, so to speak, and don't what I call coddle. And that's hard to do because I catch myself even doing that right now too. Let's talk about toys for just a minute. I know you're all out and about shopping for that. Anything that is bright colored at this point, they love. Anything that has a squeaky. These ducks are a real favorite for whatever reason. I think they have a squeaky in them too. The one thing I do not recommend, and like this is a pull toy, although I don't like to play tug with golden retrievers, you're supposed to have them give whatever they have in their mouth to you with a nice soft mouth rather than tug and hang on to it really tight. I don't use rawhides anymore. Number one, if you're going to use a rawhide, be sure it's made in the U.S. In the past anyway, some of the rawhides made overseas had just a touch of arsenic in them. But my big thing with rawhides is once they chew and begin to break things off, they get very, very soft, and they're very easy to swallow in pieces like this. And the puppy or the dog can choke on them. It doesn't matter how old they are. So to the point where you may have to reach down their throat to pick it out. So I don't use rawhides anymore. What I do recommend is something called a Nylabone. It's Nylabone. You can purchase them in flavors. This is a puppy Nylabone, okay? And by the time these puppies go home, and actually probably right about now, this is going to be too small for them. You want to be sure that the toy that they're chewing on is bigger than them. Number one, so it doesn't get swallowed. Golden retrievers seem to be infamous for eating things they're not supposed to. So if you have, especially adult dogs, if you have socks laying around, leads, just be careful that, they like to eat that stuff. Most of it they can pass, but some of it they can't, and you have to end up making a trip to the vet for that. But Nylabone is almost indestructible. This one's been chewed on for a while by our older dogs. So that's what I would recommend. And when the puppy is biting or nipping at you, redirect their attention with some kind of toy. Either something bright, something that squeaks, or put a Nylabone in their mouth. These bones are fabulous. You can buy them at the pet store. They are actually I believe a femur bone, but they're stuffed with like peanut butter or cheese or bacon. Again, this is much larger than they are, to help them with their teething. Just kind of redirect their attention to this. So that would be my one toy that I do not recommend are the rope toys, okay, for obvious reasons. This stuff right here is really easy for the puppy to tear out, to chew, and to swallow. This does not digest, can create a blockage in the intestines. A lot of the rope toys are braided like this and then attached, for instance, to a big ball. Okay, now I would say that that would be okay until this part starts to fray. And then if this part starts to look like this part, I would get rid of the toy. Take the ball off, let them have the ball, but don't do this. This is nothing more than cotton material. A good friend of mine's dog ate one of these, and they had to go in and do emergency surgery because this is obviously going to be blocked in the intestine, and then you have a very dangerous situation. I personally don't buy any kind of toy that has a rope on it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about going home, which is going to be happening here in about another week and a half. That's exciting. When you take your puppy home, okay, first of all, I want you to remember that everything that is surrounding the puppy, including you and your voice, is going to be different. And I would say that the pups are probably going to digress maybe 2 weeks from them being here and with their litter mats. Right now they are used to banging pots and pans. I can run the sweeper along the pen without, some of them kind of wake up and startle, and if they startle, I pick them up, put them down by the sweeper, tell them good girl, good boy, put them back in the crate, continue on, or in the pen, continue on with what I'm doing. If you're going to introduce them to noise in your house, I would suggest that you start away from them. You know, start running the sweeper in another room and make your way in. Bang a few pots and pans a distance from them, and then walk into the room. They're going to be a little timid when you take them home. They're curious, they're outgoing, they are not afraid, but they're going to be in totally different surroundings and with different people, different voices. They're used to my voice and my giving commands. So if you have a hard time getting your puppy to sit and shake, please be patient with them. Patience is an incredible virtue to have when you're trying to raise a puppy for the first year. They'll get used to you really quick, but just they might be a little apprehensive when you first get home. When you first get home, the first place I would introduce them to would be the backyard or wherever you're going to have them potty. You can designate a specific area in the yard that you want them to go in. You just have to be sure to take them to that area all the time. They go basically where they smell scent. Now, of course, when you first get home, there are going to be accidents in the house. Hopefully not. They've done really well here with the litter. And I recommend that you take them outside about every hour and a half. Or if they, after they've eaten all the time, and if they wake up from sleeping like this, the first thing you do would be to take them outside. But introduce them to the backyard. When you're going to bring them in the house, I would confine them to a small area. A lot of people put them in a laundry room and put a gate across the door, or this metal fencing can be bought. Now Bob added the PVC to it to give it some stability, but you can make a little area for your puppy to stay in. It can even have a crate in it, bowl of water, toys, and then gradually as she learns that and is comfortable with that area, then you expand her territory. Don't take her home and give her full run of the house. So you're going to find little presents for you no matter where you go. But she also needs to know what his or her boundaries are. You can teach a golden retriever to not go in certain rooms. I mean, you have to be consistent about it. At this young age, that might be a little tough to do, but as they get older, we had a golden that knew exactly where she was allowed to go. Any place that had tile, and when she was asked to come upstairs or on the carpet, she would come, but wouldn't cross that line, unless she was invited to. So that's what I would do when I get home, as far as introducing them to different areas. For those of you who have young children, I do ask you to please supervise them the first few weeks, depending on how old they are, with the puppy. The puppy is going to need time-out space. It's going to need time to get away from everybody, to get away from kids, to get away from me. They're going to need their space to go and to rest and just kind of chill out and be by themselves. The one thing I would definitely try to inform or teach the kids is the more calm they can stay, the calmer they are going to keep the puppy. The puppy or any dog will pick up on its master's emotions, your anxiety. They're very keen to know all that stuff. So if your child is screaming all the time and the puppy is jumping and trying to, tear at their jacket or whatever, usually if they can just calm down and do nothing, and of course the puppy needs to be corrected from that misbehavior, they just do and respond much better if we're in a calm environment. The one thing I cannot emphasize enough, when you take your puppy home, there has to be an alpha human in the family. Okay, now that means that hopefully the adults in the family and the children, depending on the age, will definitely learn that position, should take that position with the puppy. The puppy has to be taught who's in charge. And that is one of the big reasons that I have spent so much time putting these puppies in a submissive position. Okay, this is the one position I think just about any animal hates to be in, because they are the most vulnerable in this particular stage. If your puppy is out of control, if they're nipping and biting and you just can't seem to stop that, you take that puppy firmly and put it on its back and you make it stay there and tell him to settle. Rub his tummy, tell him to settle with a firm voice. As he begins to do it, then you kind of, good boy, make it a softer settle. Okay? The puppy needs to know who's in command. If the nipping gets out of control, I'm not going to do it. I did do it before, but she's being perfect right now. You grab around the snout tightly, not enough to hurt her or him, but enough that there's pressure on that snout, and you look at the puppy eye to eye and you tell him no, and then you growl at him, just like Mama would do. And she lets him know, okay, I'm done. You're not going to do that anymore. And it's not going to take care of the problem totally, but it will be a good start as far as telling the dog, I'm in charge here. You're going to do what I say. If the puppy, for any reason, and I would start now, it's not uncommon that animals become protective of their food or of their toys. When you take this puppy home, you should all be able to, and I would practice from young child all the way up to mom and dad, while the puppy is eating, put some kibble in it and let him eat. Good girl. Let him eat out of your hand. You should be able to take a toy from him. If he's grasping on it really strong, you tell him give, and just kind of pry the mouth open if you can. Give. Once he gives it to you, good boy. If they would ever growl at you, and this has happened before to a pup that was about 2 months. And it's not uncommon that they're going to test their limits. But if the dog is 2 months, 2.5, 3 months, and you got to take something away from him, or you reach for him or her and they growl at you, that has to be nipped in the bud right away. And you do the exact same thing, only this time the puppy's bigger, and you apply a little pressure. And I usually get a yelp from them, and I tell them no, and I growl. Then I let go. Good boy. Try again with the food or the toy. The one puppy that came back to me, he was about 3.5 months old. There was just, I'm not sure what was going on, but the dog ran the household, and that just can't happen, or it's going to be a disaster. So if you have questions or concerns about behavior, please call me. Don't hesitate to call me, and I can pretty much tell you what you might try. I don't know all the answers, but I do know that I took that dog's snout and I let him, and he never ever growled at me again. Took him to the vet put food in his mouth, took it out, did everything he could to get the puppy to growl. So I'm not saying that you can't have an aggressive golden retriever. Sometimes you do, and it's usually genetic that's come from somewhere back in their lines. But I can tell you that when these puppies leave Spirit Goldens, they're not aggressive puppies. So as they grow, they're going to be more challenging. So if those kind of situations arise, please call me. Okay? I'd be more than happy to help you if I can. If not, I'll try to refer you on to someone who might be able to know the answers more than I would. What else was I going to talk about here? Oh, as far as food, we are eating Canaday. Just this week, I'm going to stop the grinding, and it's very tiny little kibbles. I'm going to put it in a bowl and soak it in warm water for about 10 minutes. Now, your puppy's not going to eat 4 cups of dog food a day. Careful. You can't fall asleep in the water, baby. It's not going to eat 4 cups of dog food to start out with. So put a cup maybe in a bowl at a time, wet it. They're not real fond about the fact that they have to chew it. That's something new and different, but they're going to realize that if they're hungry, they're going to have to do that. Eventually, you'll be able to take the water away. I can't really give you an exact time of how long you're going to have to moisten it. Might be for another month or 2. If the pup is having, and they shouldn't be by the time they go home, having trouble eating it, you might pop it in a blender and just give it a zap here and there, break it up a little bit more for them. They are being weaned this week. Mama has really cut back. I've taken her away from them at night. She's not with them all day. She might nurse them, I'd say probably twice a day right now. By Wednesday, that will be it. And this is actually harder on Mama than it is the puppies. Mama's the one who, usually they get tired of it, but not my dogs. They seem to want to do it until the time they leave. So they should be weaned totally by the time you take them home. Someone asked a question about treats. I do want you to feed the dog premium dog food. If Canaday is not one that you want to stay on and you like something else, just be sure that you look at the ingredients of the dog food. The first ingredient should be, if it's a food that contains meat, should be either chicken or turkey. It should not be chicken byproducts. What I like about Canaday is it's made with whole chicken or whole. It's got fruits and vegetables in it. There's also no whey and no corn in it, which are 2 ingredients that seem to be culprits for a lot of dogs to be allergic to. So if you're having a lot of ear infections or you're having a skin problem, it might be something in the food. So far, we've not had any problem with it. And if you are going to change your dog's food away from what they're eating now, I would suggest that you please do that with the help of your vet. It's hard on their little systems to change food right away, and even when you do change food, you got to do it at a very gradual pace. It might take a month to get them from one food to another. Snacks or treats as far as when you're training the dog. Of course, I like anything that's high quality, or I don't want to say holistic isn't the word, natural, anything with natural ingredients in it. Sometimes cheese is a good thing to use. Sometimes I cut up little bits of turkey dogs, like hot dogs, and use that as a reward. So you can give them those kind of things. I would not give them too many different things all at one time. Introduce them, well, they will have had some cheese here, but just introduce them to one type of cheese, maybe for a week, and then introduce them to something different. If you start to see a change in the stools and things are becoming runny, then you know you need to back off of something, and that the puppy, its digestive system needs to adjust to the new food that they're eating. So they've had, one of my big things is I spoil them rotten. At night they get goat's milk, which is the closest thing to mother's milk. I bring it to a boil and I put some eggs and some honey in it. It's full of protein. They love it. But you don't have to do that. I will send that recipe home with you. But those kind of things, you know, they all have to get used to something different being introduced. These puppies have all had to start with new vet vitamins and joint supply. I've been grinding it in general in the food. When you go home, I need to check my supply of vitamins, but I will give you hopefully enough that for you to go home for 2 weeks. The tablets are big, and the bottle will tell you give them 1 tablet per weight. Well, I don't start a puppy this young out on that big of a vitamin. I divide them up in 4 pieces, and they get 1/4 of a tablet a day, and then I gradually increase it. Again, if it's affecting the stools, they may get some diarrhea, then you know you need to cut back, maybe every other day. The vitamins are full of antioxidants, which are supposed to help fight the free radicals which cause cancer. Do they work? I don't know. I will tell you that it does give them an incredibly soft coat. I can always tell the difference when I run out and I have to go a week without giving it to them in the feel of their coats. But I just feel that, you know, if by chance they do work, it's just one more thing I've done to help fight against that horrible disease, which can be, you know, tends to run in the Golden Retriever breeds as it does a lot of breeds. Joint supplements, I would keep them on for the first 2 years of life. New Vet does make a joint supplement. You can also give them human grade chondroitin glucosamine. You have to talk to the vet about the amount to give them, especially for hip development. The hips in a Golden Retriever develop the first 2 years of life. The chances that these puppies are all going to have great hips is really high because mom and dad had great hips. But there are never any 100% guarantees. I think we all know that in life. If you would ever develop a problem with the dog in the first 2 years of life that would affect its quality of life, you need to let me know that. Please, in particular, I need to record that as far as future breedings. Your puppy is guaranteed the first 2 years of life for anything that's life-threatening that could affect its quality of life. That would, you know, I can't specifically name off exactly what I would have to decide at the time, you know, what I know what my definition of quality of life is. But if there would ever be a problem, please let me know. I hope that would never ever happen. But, you know, we do the best we can. I feel like I've done everything I could possibly do to give these pups the best start in life. There can be environmental causes to hip dysplasia. I will tell you that the first 2 years of life, I don't suggest that you take the dog running. If you're going to walk, I would avoid walking on. Walking is great. I would try to do the least amount of walking on concrete, just as in humans, it's really hard on joints. It doesn't mean you can't exercise the dog. Of course you can. You can play ball, but I would put a limit to it. You know, first there's a lot of